This is Marc Thiessen, columnist, Washington Post, Fox News contributor. Marc, how you doing? And good morning to you. Let's get
good to be with you, Bill.
Just put this in perspective about what we're hearing on this.
So to put this in perspective, one of the most catastrophic blunders ever made by any American president was when Barack Obama withdrew all American forces from Iraq, taking our boot off of the terrorist necks, which they then reconstituted themselves and surged and took over a caliphate the size of Great Britain. Now imagine that Barack Obama had done that in 2011, but instead of doing it unilaterally, he invited ISIS to Camp David to sign a deal on the U.S. withdrawal. That is essentially what President Trump was proposing to do with the Taliban. The Taliban, Liz Cheney is 100% correct. The Taliban have no business being in Camp David. And just to understand what kind of a propaganda victory that would have been for the Taliban, Camp David, they would have been sitting around the very table where President Bush and U.S. officials planned the invasion and overthrow of their regime to accept what they would have presented to the Muslim world as America's surrender, and doing it on the anniversary of 9/11.
I can understand
that would have been
that.
Such an amazing propaganda victory for the Taliban.
I understand the point you're making there. Maybe they had a deal. Maybe this was the way to get it done, Marc.
A deal for what? A deal for us to withdraw. See, you know, the thing is, I support what President Trump has been doing with Kim Jong-un and negotiating with the North Korean regime and meeting with him. I also would support if he wanted to sit down with the Iranian regime, and there's a reason for that. He's negotiating from a position of strength. He has imposed crippling sanctions on both of those regimes, and he's twisting them, but is also sitting down and talking with them. He's not negotiating from a position of strength with the Taliban, because the Taliban understands that President Trump wants to get out, which is what they want as well. So they have no incentive to give him anything except face-saving, gestures. And they're basically what they're saying to Al-Qaeda is, look, you're our brothers, lay low. We're going to get the Americans out. They'll be gone by 2020, and then you can come back in. And so there's no, you don't negotiate from a position of weakness, and you certainly don't bring them to Camp David.
Okay, we will hear in about 3 hours. We'll hear the president talk about it. He's going to take some questions from the White House. Let's talk Democratic politics right now. Here is the headline.
Sure.
Warren and Clinton talk behind the scenes as 2020 race intensifies. What do you make of this pair?
Well, first of all, I think what's most telling about it is that it's behind the scenes. Everybody's wondering why Joe Biden hasn't gotten Barack Obama's endorsement. Nobody's wondering why and Hillary Clinton hasn't endorsed anybody, because nobody wants Hillary Clinton's endorsement. She's toxic because she's the one who gave us the Trump presidency, and she's too centrist. This is no longer Hillary Clinton's party. The Clinton mantra was the era of big government is over. The Democratic mantra today is the era of big government is back. So, this is not somebody who people are seeking her endorsement or certainly her advice for how to beat Donald Trump.
Here's where we stand. You got a debate in about 3 days, right? Thursday night, Houston, Texas. Right now, you've got, here's Joe Biden now versus May of 2019. You see what Elizabeth Warren has been doing over the past several months. Why do you think she's moving in that direction?
Because I think candidate quality matters. She's actually a pretty skilled candidate. She's laid out a lot of policies. And I think people are there's a number of Democrats who realize that Joe Biden is the Mitt Romney of the Democratic Party. I mean, if you remember back in 2012, we had the Tea Party revolution, and people were terrified that Republicans would nominate some extremists who couldn't win. So they said, let's go with a wishy-washy moderate who has a lot of gaffes, and we'll just ride anti-Obama fervor into the White House. And that doesn't work. Nobody's excited about Joe Biden. They just think he's the most electable candidate. Well, if that's the fact, then we'd have President Romney right now in his second term.
You mentioned North Korea. I'm just reading this off the AP wire. There are news reports, Marc. I know this is kind of like a pop quiz here, but out of Seoul, South Korea, they're saying that North Korea is now willing to restart nuclear negotiations with the U.S. in late September. So if that is true and accurate, now this is the latest return served now between the U.S. and North Korea. Go ahead and manage that one, Marc.
I mean, the fact is Donald Trump's strategy with North Korea is working. He has put crippling sanctions on the regime. He's flipped the cards on them. Nick Eberstadt of the American Enterprise Institute had a great, fascinating op-ed about it. He talked about how that when he went and just tweeted to Kim Jong-un, hey, why don't we meet at the DMZ? I'm going to be in town, and Kim Jong-un came. That's not how it works. North Korea always calls the shots about where things are going to be held and what things are going to be done. So that was seen as a sign of weakness for the regime within North Korea that he assented to that. So he's got them cornered financially. He's squeezing them, and he's just waiting patiently because he's not going to take a bad deal.
I thought KT McFarland's point about appealing to Chairman Kim's ego was very interesting from last hour. Keep an eye on that. Marc, thank you so much. Marc Thiessen
All right.
there with us
Thank
in
you.
D.C. Talk to you real soon, Marc. Thank you. Heather.